Okay, so we'll start. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this meeting in a hybrid model, both virtually and in person. The Public Works Commission is conducting this meeting on February 14th, 2024 at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Zoom platform and in person in accordance with the town's policy directive and guidelines issued on April 1st, 2020 and amended on May 7th. For members of the public, when I open the meeting to public comment, in order to be recognized, please use the raise hand option in Zoom or *9 by phone. And if you could be muted until then, that would be great. If you're recognized, please state your name and address. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on the town's website. I, Andrea Solomon, hereby call this meeting to order. Okay, so we'll start with approval of the minutes. Did anyone have changes?
Yes,
Okay.
what a surprise. On the third page, the third full paragraph, there was discussion about the scenic road bylaw and discussion for regulations, discussions relative to that. There were comments that are in the minutes about some feelings that the regulations were bureaucratic, redundant. And I added a comment that I felt that having the scenic road bylaw allowed new perspectives to be entered into the process of reviewing roadway improvements along scenic roads. So I'm not sure the exact wording I use, but something to the effect.
Yeah, could we add that to the minute? Anyone else?
Yes, on page 1. Jeff was attending remotely and it wasn't noted. So under A1, just after who were in attendance, to Jeff Vassar attended remotely. On page 2, I've got a couple typo suggestions. So in the second paragraph.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Jim, President, you said Jim Fasher does say remote.
Many times.
It's down below.
Oh, down below.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Yeah.
So in the second paragraph, it starts by tree bylaw. 1, 2, 3, the fourth line down, I would get rid of the word be. And on the line below it, I would make it require instead of required. And the very last word in that paragraph, I would add an S to make it public works. And on page 3, in the first big paragraph, town council, I would spell it differently.
Huh.
SEL.
Oh, is that pesky council?
With those changes, I move that we approve the minutes of January 10th. 2024, the very first page, should say 2024 instead of 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
If
Abstain.
you're not gonna have me much longer for that.
You can still read the minutes.
Oh,
on it,
yeah,
though.
there you go. The wrong minutes, did you have the date, meeting minutes from December 15th, 2023?
That was the one that were approved at the last meeting.
Why would they?
Because there was an action item. On
Yes.
January, and December.
You'll see the same next month.
I won't say December.
I won't say December.
So better not, right?
Okay, we'll move on to the review of the calendar.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think it's, again, the actual call outs are fairly lean. Obviously, there's some flexibility depending on activities. And I will kind of note, I had a conversation with a coworker earlier. We've been working with this commission, and it's some of these activities are kind of iterative. You know, the town meeting preparation, for instance, it's not a one and done. You know, we introduce things, it's concept, we then bring them back when they're kind of formulated. So you'll see, town meeting does sort of occupy a lot of our activities, called out or not. I think, I will just highlight not so much on the commission's, calendar, but just be mindful of town meeting calendar and the various hearings, and we'll be talking about that, but we typically don't include things outside of the direct public works purview here. But those are some of the activities that will probably be, I want to draw your attention to, and we can talk about that a little later.
Okay.
So,
I would like to know they will not be able to make the March meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so moving on to, the first discussion item, solid waste and recycling program update. Like maybe Justine and Aaron?
Yeah, I think Aaron McCloskey is going to come up to the table. You have a memo that he and Justine had packaged, and this is really, again, part of the iterative process. We've had a few conversations about our solid waste recycling program. We're about to go in earnest where we're starting to look at negotiating a new contract. There are some concepts that we wanted to sort of get on the table. Make sure you are aware of these, and anything that we do that's going to involve eventual changes to the public, there'll be a lot of outreach, as well. But this is the first stop to, want to just, compliment Aaron, Justine on their sort of, they now understand the program very well. They've really only owned it for the last couple of years. We did knowingly go into this fiscal year, knowing we're going to be dipping into the reserve fund with the knowledge that there was a need to revisit and refocus the program and get it on track. And Aaron and Justine have been sort of, I'll turn it over to Aaron. You can then talk about some of the preparation you have to this point and some of the conceptual recommendations you're kind of looking at. And eventually we'll come back with a rate hearing to formalize, but this is more of just where we think we're headed. So that, Aaron?
Thank you. Aaron McCloskey, Highway and Ground Superintendent, Town of Concord. Good evening, everyone. So thank you for the introduction, Alan. So, typically every year we do an overview of solid waste recycling program leading into kind of the rate hearing, recommendations we provide the commission to vote on and then subsequently approve. And ahead of that, we just wanted to give kind of an update on where we're at with our program. So currently the town contracts with Waste Management. We're in a second year of a 2-year contract. The town has been had a contract with Waste Management, multiple contracts for over 20 years now. They've been the curbside and municipal building solid waste recycling provider for the town for quite a while. In our last 2 years working with them, within my division directly, we've been able to get an understanding of the program services they provide, have a good relationship with them professionally, working with them on their customer service. And respond to different issues as they come up, and kind of also have the opportunity to discuss with them, technology and ways that we could potentially save costs, or where's the industry going, things of that nature. We were involved in discussions with them prior to this current 2-year contract, and we did get a proposal from them at that time that had some different options, and they had some more cost savings that required at that time some changes in operations in order to get those savings. And at that time, we made the conscious decision, working collaboratively with Alan and some others in town, to not make any major changes when we have some new people that are involved and we want to get a full understanding of the program as a whole. Fast forward to 2 years later, when we've been able to kind of dive into the service that we provide, where we're at as far as revenue and expenses and technologies. We're prepared to make some recommendations on some changes to the program. Another thing that we've been doing is working closely with the Reuse It group. For those who don't know, it's kind of they're not they're a nonprofit committee group in town, not an official town committee, if you will, as appointed by the town manager or the select board, but more as a nonprofit made up of residents in the community. Very involved, great group of people that are very interested in reducing the environmental footprint of the town, recycling initiatives, zero waste initiatives, things of that nature. They've had a great working relationship with the department and the town for over 20 years as well. I think heavily involved with the original, recycling program, if you will, when it was first implemented, and very involved with the zero waste days or the drop off, swap off, we refer to in town that we hold twice a year at this complex. And we've had some conversations with their board, and most recently, a couple months ago, where we provided them some of the same information that we communicate to this group tonight about where we're looking at kind of going with the program. Now, these changes that we're really looking for and goals for the new program aren't really driven by customer demand per se. For the most part, when we hear from customers, it's, you know, if the trash might have gotten missed, or they have a question about the type of service, they're a new resident, they want to change their type of service, things like that. It's not really, you know, they're striving for, you know, they don't like the way the service is being provided, or they might not know about the technologies that are out there, right? Their trash is getting, they're putting all the trash out on the curb, it's getting picked up at the end of the day, and everything's getting. There was a survey that was put out a few years ago, 3 years ago, 2021, kind of solid waste recycling survey that was put out to the subscribers in the program, and the town got some feedback. And at that time, in general, most of the feedback was kind of as far as, do they want to make a change? 50-50. Some of them were interested in the new technology. Some of them liked it the way that it was. In my experience is, if there's not a reason to change it, why change it, right? Because folks sometimes don't like change. But really, we're at the point now where we're recommending a change. And really, the main drivers of that are, one, the cost of the program has just increased significantly and over the last few years, and we've kind of mentioned that at previous rate hearings where we talked about the cost of recycling is skyrocketing. Fuel costs for the vehicles is skyrocketing, and there are opportunities to make some adjustments. And so some of the goals for the new program that are here on the board are really, so our current program is a dual stream recycling program, which means your recycling materials are split up between paper and cardboard as one stream, and the second stream is kind of commingled, so it's a glass, plastic, metal, things like that. So those are picked up individually, and those are sorted, and then they're brought to two different facilities in two different vehicles, right? It's a manual pickup, which means there's a driver in the vehicle, and that driver either has to jump out, or there's a second operator on that vehicle that jumps out of the vehicle to pick up the trash and empty it into the trash truck. We're looking to, those are probably two of the biggest changes that the end user would see. And then is changing those from a dual stream to a single stream recycling, so materials all commingled together, and then it's then brought to one processing facility where all the materials are sorted out. Technology's changed quite a bit in 20 years, and working with DEP, they have a program that Justine's been a member of, this multi municipality and agency group that meets monthly to talk about recycling, solid waste programs, new contracts, RFPs, things like that. Other communities that are in similar situations where we're at, they're nearing the end of a contract and looking at program changes and what are some best practices, and working closely with representatives from DEP to make sure that we are getting all the information we need to make an educated decision that we can propose to the town on some program changes. And finding, working with that group, we're finding we're one of the last ones that are still doing dual stream recycling in the Commonwealth in this area. So single stream. The automation is another change. So we have the manual pickup, we're looking to do automation. And what that means is then the truck will be an outfitted truck that has a mechanical arm that reaches out and manually picks up a toter. Now that toter would be issued by the municipality or by the vendor. And to be a subscriber in the program, you have to use that specific toter. So instead of just putting out a trash bag or your own trash barrel that you want to go purchase from a local hardware store, you would have to use that specific toter as a barcode and other identifiers on it that we can help us track the usage of that program for both solid waste and for recycling. So that would be a pretty big change that the end user sees, right? A couple of reasons that we're striving for that. The main driver is the cost. All right, if you're able to reduce the labor, reduce the number of trucks that you're using, it reduces the cost, and then it's a cost savings to the town and ultimately the end user, because it's a rate funded program. It's not funded through the general fund. Rate users directly pay for the cost of the program. So if the cost goes up, the end user's rate goes up. We're also trying to follow the town's sustainability initiatives. The town and this commission as well, where we're trying to electrify our fleet. We're trying to reduce our fuel usage. And one of the strategic ways we can do that is reducing the number of trucks, right? Going from either 3 trucks or two trucks, even down to one truck that we're hearing might be possible, depending on if you get a truck that's a split body truck where one half of the truck is recycling, the other half of the truck is solid waste. And with the automation and the time savings on the routes, you can dump both containers into the same truck. It's split and divided, you know, one truck on the road and they're able to do the route in that much less time. That's saving money, reducing the fuel usage. So that's one thing we're looking at as well. And then we're from what we can find from doing just, you know, our own research and talking to Waste Management. There's opportunity to electrify the fleet. That's a big thing that we're trying to do here in Public Works. We've been successful with implementing a number of electric vehicles into our fleet. And I am encouraged from the conversations with Waste Management, there's opportunities, whether it's through them or through another vendor possibly, to get an electric trash truck in town. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean it's the full-size trash truck that's doing the main routes? Probably not. It might be something where we have like a municipal downtown barrel route. It's a smaller route, that they can use a smaller truck that's all electric to go and empty the downtown barrels and service some municipal buildings. And it, you know, on the side of the truck, it says Town of Concord Recycling and Solid Waste, right? And it's a green truck, more ways than one, right? And, you know, there are some capabilities, and I think if we work and we're creative, I think we have some technologies in town. We have a high-speed charging station down in West Concord now that's open to the public. That opens up some more opportunities for us as well to get some more fleet electrification in town. So those are some of the things that we're trying to do in terms of the changes we're trying to make, and we've reached out to Waste Management. We've had some conversations with them. We've communicated this information to them that we'd like to see this in a proposal from them. We're gonna be reaching out to a couple other vendors as well, and communicating the same information and try to see what we can do to get a cutting edge program for the town that is gonna be self-sustaining and also, you know, meet some of the sustainability goals for the town. I'm sure there's gonna be folks that are not gonna want change and not gonna wanna see automation and wanna still put out, you know, the one bag of trash or not do any trash, and that's fine. But really, in order for us to continue to be self-funded and offer a program that's through the department, through the town, and not just telling everybody they need to privatize because we can't afford to run this essentially a business anymore. We want to try to give a solution, continue to provide the service for the town and come up with a solution. So, that's kind of high level. I'm open to kind of questions
Yeah,
or,
before you go, just two other concepts. In order to realize this, we need to have a contract and commitment for, you know, more than a couple of years, right? The vendor has to invest in the equipment and needs that we're specifying, so that's part of kind of where we're at. But this is a time to, what do we envision for the next 5-10 years anyway? And then the other important part of our program is the participation is important, but the services we provide outside the core, you know, curbside is very important. And just what Justine St. John and team sort of deal with, what are the other services we offer? You know, that whole program helps us, you know, with, you know, light bulbs and mattress programs and all these other services that we sort of help orchestrate. And those are, you know, somewhat, that's the whole package, you know. And so we look at our, you know, solid waste recycling. This is the major component, but this is how we get a lot of participation. And, you know, I think we just have to be creative with how do we make it a viable, you know, operation, use the technology. But, you know, as Aaron said, cost matters, but also, you know, service and sustainability issues are, you know, why Concord was, you know, ahead of the pack, you know, 25 years ago. So that.
I have a bunch of questions. I'll try and keep them short. One is, as a consumer and as a user of this, I feel you need to educate me and not necessarily totally just say what I want, what would, you know, if it's more convenient for me to put out one bag, that's what I want. The reality is we've got to look at the big picture of what the impact of this recycling is, right? I mean, I think on society, you know, on the country, you know, where's it going? What is the, you know, systemically, what are we dealing with here? I need to be told if I'm carefully sorting my paper and my plastics and it's all being thrown away, you know, the paper or whichever one, the plastics are now not there's no market for that, right? Is that correct?
Justine can just,
Is that?
So, that was something that was talked about back.
Justine, do you wanna come up? I'm sure, no, please do, just. Justine does the day-to-day, and I think a lot of these questions and comments she's hearing from the community, so it'll be good to
I need to
kind of
know,
share
as
that, yeah.
consumers, are we wasting our
Absolutely.
time?
No.
Are you in?
Absolutely, I completely understand. So, there was an article that came out about a year ago talking about how 90% of plastics are not recycled. Now, that is worldwide, and that is including plastics that were never meant to be recycled. So what Mass DEP did about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, is they worked with the haulers, trash haulers, and the MRFs, which is where everything is processed, to figure out what there was a market for, and then create the recycling guidelines with that in mind. So when I get a phone call saying, why can't I recycle the little plastic thing that berries come in?
Yep.
Well, the reason for that is because it's not recycled there anyways. But if everybody sticks to what the guidelines are for recycling plastics, recycling jars, recycling cans, about 85% of that is recycled in Massachusetts. So it is not, it seems futile when you hear the bigger news, but in Massachusetts, they have worked very hard to make sure that what you're putting in recycle bin is actually recycled.
Okay, thank you.
and for so for those who don't know, Justine St. John, she's the program analyst in Highway and Grounds and Public Works.
Great. So anyway, I just think I need to keep educating the public about what's working, what doesn't, and these streams. So we're not, thinking we're doing something good, when we're really making no difference. I didn't hear, wasn't clear to me in your presentation, sort of what are the decisions that you have to make in the next year or two? In terms of, we have to choose a vendor, we have to choose whether we're gonna electrify or we're gonna do, what, can you summarize sort of the decisions that you're facing? that
Right,
the
so-
department's facing?
So that contract that we currently have with Waste Management is up in September.
Mhm.
So before September, we need to have a new contract in place
Mhm.
with a new, or it could be Waste Management again, with a solid waste and recycling, a vendor. Prior to that, we have to solicit proposals, which we are currently in the process of doing.
Mhm.
We have to select a proposal, and, review the price of the proposal.
Mhm.
Then we'll go before the town manager who authorizes it, once we make a recommendation. And then from that, we will then determine, what rates should be in order to, make sure we can fund said contract. And we'll come before the commission to do a rate hearing.
Mhm.
And what I would anticipate is that these changes that we're proposing be incorporated in a new contract are not gonna happen September 1st. And, the discussions that we've had with Waste Management, they know that we can't just make a change without educating the public. Education is one of the most important things that we're gonna have to do, if not the most important thing we're gonna have to do in order to have a successful launch of any change, right? That's why, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, we've already started just to have those discussions with Reuser Group so they can kind of educate, the stakeholders and members of their organization as we prepare to educate and present to this group, others as well. Waste Management has a lot of experience with that. They've worked with municipalities and private entities to do implementation of program changes regularly. They're professionals. They have plenty of education material available to them. We've had those discussions that if we are selecting them and we have a contract and we engage with them to make these changes, we're gonna be working very, very closely with them to help push that material out. Inviting them in, they've offered to come before the commission to present to you folks, to educate you, so you can help communicate that message and to anybody else who wishes to attend the meeting, and then continue to work with us to push that information out to the public. And like I said, it wouldn't be day one. It'd probably be something where we have to procure a truck, procure the right equipment, get the toters, procure those, roll those out, train people on how to use them. And then it has set a start date at some point in the future, maybe year 2, maybe it's year 3, where we start to implement those.
How can we help you?
Well, you have been. So this is the
Yeah.
iterative process. We've kind of been here. We've had conversations. We've talked about concepts. There's not a lot of difficult decisions to make. It's more of the awareness, understanding, education, and this is the start of the process. And you know, we've worked very actively with Reuse It. You know, they're a group that is earnest. They really have been involved with this arena. So our job is to identify stakeholders and, you know, then make information available. And just the questions that you ask kind of help inform what is people, you know, what if, you know, these two are now sort of more into the weeds. You help us make sure we're not missing something. But we've gotten to a point where the goals and proposals are getting clearer and clearer. Now we know, you know, okay, we, as professionals, subject matter experts, we can help explain. And any question you have just allows us to say, what are other people thinking? So that's how you can help us. And eventually it'll be a rate hearing where it's the public process to have a final say before you determine, yep, the budget, the rates, the program sounds good.
I just want to say, when you had the goals up on this slide, I think those are fantastic. I like the way this is headed. And you guys are the experts. I'm not sure I'm using the right terms here, but I saw the left side of those as kind of operational improvements, single stream, automated pickups, those things. Then the right side was more the benefits that come from that. And I think maybe you probably already thought about this, but to David's point, that maybe part of the education process. If we implement these operational improvements, there's added benefits to the community.
Yeah, and I think Aaron and I know Justine, we talked the other day, there was a huge shift in the recycling markets like in 2018. And so what used to almost pay for itself doesn't anymore. And that's been a big, Massachusetts has done a great job at getting organized and making sure recycling's still happening. We're lucky for that. So thank you for working so closely with them and keeping us going too.
Absolutely. DEP's been a valuable resource for us, and they are aware that this is, the industry as a whole, there's a lot to know about it, especially when you're talking with trash haulers and processing plants and everything else. So they've made sure to bring us all together so we can have open and honest conversations about what's going on in our towns and what might benefit us that maybe another town's already thought of. So we're working really hard to make sure that we can get the best plan for Concord.
That's great. Any questions?
No questions.
Yeah, not heavy lifting. This is sort of information.
One comment, what Dave said, if you do have neighbors that are interested or have questions, this month's meeting, at the beginning, we talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, so get them to, you know, just look at the Minutemen Network, you know, once the meeting is up.
It'll be posted, yeah. All right.
Aaron, Justine, thanks.
And again, you know, Justine is sort of the point person on these, you know, the details and has lots of conversations on this, you know, with internally and fortunately externally too. What are other communities doing and why? And that's that whole DEP coalition, really important.
Are there other vendors that, because it sounds like Waste Management is the big kahuna in this business?
Well, there are several.
That would be considered.
That, you know, so we're planning on reaching out to at least 3 or 4 to make sure that, again, that we're getting the best program. You know, sometimes the pricing is different.
Yep.
Sometimes they offer different service. Waste Management is known for, they're known for their customer service.
Mhm.
And so, you know, I just happened to get a report the other day that is, you know, they've had a report of, our yearly report was 99 missed pickups for the entire year. Which if you think of 3,500 subscribers, 5 days a week,
Mm.
you know, 52 weeks a year, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And we have a good relationship with them, but doesn't mean that another vendor can't deliver
Be
either.
considered.
Yeah, absolutely.
Justine also does all of the organization for Drop Off Swap,
Mhm.
which every time I go, I'm amazed
Yeah.
that this gets off so systematically.
I have a lot of help.
every-
I have a lot of help, including Reuse It.
You
As
have to
well
find
as,
yourself.
as well as the mattress program, the grants and those sorts of things, that's part of it.
Styrofoam
Yeah.
recycling.
Exactly,
Yeah.
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 Very good. Well, thank you, just.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
Aaron, thank you.
So on to our town warrant articles review discussion two.
So, it is we are on that proverbial making of the sausage, when it comes to town meeting. And, this is interesting this year, you know, part of the preamble is we've been operating under, I'd say the COVID model for a number of years, where, if you are familiar, pre-2020, town meeting was during the week, several, 2, 3, 4 nights, in April. When COVID hit, there was a change in the sort of, process and sort of well, we have multi nights now. We're sort of this year, I think we've seen a lot of citizen petitions and activities that were sort of on hold and reserved for a little while. But what I want to do is just highlight, at least give the commission the benefit of the whole packet. The warrant is published, and so that's what is now being tweaked. Up until this point, we talked about some concepts, but now with the commission's interest, just to kind of focus on, Dave, kind of your mantra, what do you need from us, or what's our role of responsibility? And, just to highlight those things I think you need to be more aware of. And of course, as residents, you should be aware of everything. But as public works commissioners, try to flag those things of interest. When we talk about the capital improvement and debt plan, you folks are already given sort of a heads up as far as direction and major initiatives early on. You see memos that we sort of craft with proposals that go up to be discussed, at the town manager's office with the chief financial officer, and some coordination with the FinCom. And a lot of people want to know, well, when Public Works has an $8-9 million ask and there is a $7 million budget, well, how does that jive? Our job is just to promote and advocate and sort of talk about the issues. I think when it comes to the actual budget plan, our voice has been heard. Now, it's not necessarily what we want, because they have to, look at the bigger, needs and interests of the town, broader needs and interests. But at this point, we are still with a new chief financial officer and a finance team. We're still having some back and forth conversation. So I gave you, just for the courtesy of, and I apologize, the first version we sent out was a little rough, but even this version, I don't have all the answers. I have some questions myself as far as how are we going to do certain things that we know have to be done and may have been zero, proposed budget. And when we get into the details, staff are starting to look at that. But at the end of the day, the capital improvement and debt plan is what is advocated by the town manager and her office. We've already informed it, and we just wanted you to be aware of sort of what our initial ask was. You hear terms like tier 1 and tier 2. Authorizations. Tier 1 is, out of cash. Tier 2 is, out of debt. And then there's actually another concept, and something which I think this commission should be aware of. The whole idea of tier 3 are very large projects that go beyond the normal budget and will try and override. And specifically, this commission has been a champion of the 10-year planning. When we talk about roads programs over, 5 to 10 years, it's a lot of money. And we already have made the call. We've already been heard by the town manager's office, FinCom, that when we say $4 or $5 million a year for the roads alone, if we don't spend that, there's the risk that those costs are going to get deferred costs, become more costs down the road. And some of the members, not just collectively, but individually, have been out there doing your job, advocating on our behalf, which is very much appreciated. I say our behalf, Public Works. It's always the town's behalf. So our job as staff is to try and give you good information. and then manage the allowance that were issued. And, that's basically sort of the broader overview of the capital, Article 9, which is where the big money is sort of identified for spending for the town. I'm willing to entertain any questions or thoughts,
The
on
papers we look at.
Okay, so if you look at the, there's a memo, in fact, the corrected one was sent electronically. Yeah, so what I will do is, because you got the packet, this is the corrected version that was sent. Yeah, I have enough, yeah. Thanks to Bob Hill, who's unable to attend today. Okay, good. And Dave, I think what I would focus on is what we, as you look, and this is in anticipation of what's gonna be presented to the FinCom, right? There's a spreadsheet, the 11 by 17 at the back, which gives an overview of all of our larger, because this is general fund requests. Just so I know it's confusing, we also have water, sewer, and solid waste recycling, which are enterprise, but this is for the general fund request. You'll see the programs along the left. You'll see the first column, that was our request. And this is based on what staff believes is needed. And then you see a breakdown as far as various sources of whether those funds are going to be realized or deferred, reduced. But this is the spreadsheet that we're starting to look at to understand how do we, if this is our budget, we need to start planning for this for our FY25 projects. And again, they were teed up with some conceptual preliminary plans, and this now allows us to sort of focus on, all right, where's the authorization? And again, this is all pending, town meeting approval for Article 9. I will highlight a couple things that are, a concern. As an example, if you look at the asset management tools, it's 105,000. It's not a big number. And that we've been told, well, that's gonna have to defer till FY26. And the challenge is, that's a way of us understanding the needs. We know we have needs, and the sooner we can get a better understanding of these assets, the sooner the community can be better informed as to why we need some of the bigger money. So we have to look at this and, work with the town manager and chief financial, officer to understand there's gonna be some investment here. So that's a question we have. Another area to look at is, say, the road pavement management. That's, kind of more than halfway down on the engineering bin. Road pavement management, you see just $4 million request. We see just over 2 million, which is being recommended to, for debt. And if you look over in the comments, there is the potential tier 3. And that's not this town meeting, to be clear, but these conversations that we're having are starting to register and be heard. And everything in Concord takes a little time, but at least the FinCom, town manager, chief financial officer are thinking, if we really need to spend $10–15 million on roads over a short period of time to catch up, that may need to go as, debt override. And again, we'll have to make the case. It's not on the docket for this fiscal year, but for the first time, we see this at least being teased as a concept. So that is actually progress in Concord. That's how things work. And we know the roads aren't gonna just, it's not like they're on or off. It's just the deterioration we're talking about. But that does speak to, our voices being heard. And the, powers that be are trying to figure out how can they, help us, sort of realize those, help the community realize those needs. So those are a couple of examples that I just put out there as, and we are still sort of digesting this. This was just pushed out with a warrant, last, mid last week.
I have
Sven.
more question about the process, who
Yep.
in the end is making the decision, for example, to take the asset management tool out. I think it's the second time that it's taken out and postponed.
Yeah,
Is there any negotiation going on with you to say, we have to save $100,000 and pick a line item? Or is it them just taking it out? And who's them?
it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of both, and them are sort of, again, to part of the challenge with town manager's office, the new team. There's a very new finance group. Now, they have their work cut out for us, for the town, for them. And, Sven, there will be a continued ongoing back and forth, and this is, I think we're at the point now where we need to sort of volley back. And I'll give you another example. I see, and I have Justin Richardson here from engineering, if you want to get into the details, but I look at certain costs where you could consider that as almost optional, almost. Certain costs, like street light maintenance and repair,
Yeah.
have to be done. That's not an option of, if they go down, we can't say, well, we have no money. So that's the sort of thing that we have to have the back and forth saying, you might think it's a nice to, we think it's a need to, but in this area, we're gonna spend the money. And then the challenge is to Public Works, what's our authorization? And so we are in the process of, we're there, Sven, as far as beginning that discussion with the finance director and town manager. So again, this just came out last week. I know they've been juggling to get the warrant out. There's a lot of work that's gone into it, and a lot of, sort of relatively newbies who are, trying to, do the best they can with the first go round, but those are some examples of the work cut out for us between now and when this is finalized. That's why we have the hearings, and that's all in place. So there is time for adjustments. This becomes the fine tuning time.
Couple, just so I understand the differences.
Mhm.
We have road pavement management, pedestrian safety and bike, and traffic improvements.
Yeah.
What is pedestrian safety and bike? How is that different from road pavement?
Justin, you wanna sort of speak to those? You wanna come up? Justin Richardson, he's the assistant town engineer. And while I could probably give you 80% correct answer, he'll give you the 95% correct answer, so.
Hi, everyone. So basically, when we request our funding for, we like to break them out into silos now because it's a lot easier for us to manage the money that we have if we have a more clear directive for the money. So for example, you asked specifically to pedestrian and bike improvements. So those would be like sidewalk ramps, bike lanes, other things like that that are just related specifically
Yeah.
to bike and pedestrian access, because we do get a lot of requests in town for that, those type of improvements. So, it's, if it's not funded, completely, then, we sort of go with, our, funding allotments. So if they put it into pavement, which is what your other question was, that's just literally all our 3-phase program that we do. I know that we've talked about it
Yeah.
at length, so, that's what we put that towards. So just pavement directly, as opposed to these, pedestrian and bike improvements, which we do have to do a little bit with our paving program because we're required by 88. If we're gonna be redoing a street, we have to do the curb ramps. But these are more specific projects related to just sidewalks and bikes. So like if we wanted to, put a sidewalk, extend a sidewalk along a, corridor or something like that. That's how
Okay,
we
so they're
do it.
not in addition, they're not being done at the same time. It's on a different pot of money.
We
that's
would
paying-
complement the project. The project could possibly be expanded to include,
Okay,
right? If you were
Yeah.
doing a road project and you have the funds for the road, and then there's some pedestrian improvement opportunities above and beyond, that would be when we try to be efficient.
oh, yeah.
And part of the education is we've sort of run into the trouble of, if you just get one pot of money without clarity as far as where it's spending, everybody thinks what they advocated for is gonna be realized, and
Yeah.
nobody's happy. And that's sort of part of the value of, no, this is what the town is prioritizing, you see it, transparency. Let me give you an example of where, we have to make certain things work. Ministerial Drive, we'll talk about that a little bit. There was a failure of the stormwater system that has now compromised the road. It wasn't part of our road program. This failure has gone from a tens of $1,000s issue to now up at $100,000. There's no stormwater budget for that kind of capital plan. We don't have one. It wasn't funded. It was deferred. We cannot have a permanent detour and close that section of the road. That money, the $100,000, is gonna come from the roads program, because that's the source of funds. And it takes away from some of the pavement management interests that we talk about with PCI. But this is the reality of how you have to manage, and it's sort of, again, the transparency is what we're after up front. But ultimately, we just have to make it work, and that's how we kind of cobble it together. So that's an example.
And traffic improvements, are those signals and such?
So, we categorize that, so basically what we do is when we submit these budgets, we have to kind of define this whole thing and fill it out, and this is an example, I know it's fairly small, but this is how we present it to the FinCom. And so, to answer your question, the traffic improvements, we've defined that more as like intersection redesigns, stuff like that. So like for this request, we had asked for, a portion of the money which would finish funding the Baker Main intersection redesign. And then we to study another intersection
Okay,
that we defined. So that's essentially what that pot of money is.
got it.
I have a couple of questions and or comments. So, first of all, I think I would love to have it in the official minutes. It's highly concerning. You're getting cut in the engineering department by 60%. That's a significant amount of money. And that's just a repeating year over year. And we know that the costs will balloon. And I think the example you just gave, take that in your list of things when you're making presentations about the stormwater utility, that kind of a stormwater repair cost of about $10,000 or whatever dollars, more or less tenfolded.
Correct.
Yeah, and to make it clear that people understand that the magnitude of kicking the can down the road, what that in the end makes. The other comment is more on one line item, is the parking lot costs here. And I don't know how this should be communicated or how departments work together. I know kind of the planning board gives away public parking spaces on a somehow regular basis for free. That there should be some communication from the towns, if they, in connection with some kind of approving a construction, allow the use of public parking places, that there should be some kind of a fee associated that could be used
Identify the value.
for parking
Yeah,
lot
right.
work
Yeah.
that is getting cut out of our budget on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Interesting thought, yeah.
And know that in the parking revenue study from 2019, there's actually recommendation to do so of about $5,000 to $10,000 per parking lot, which could be a lot. Yeah. The Concord Academy, 57 parking lots they got for free, sitting on Main Street with this premium repair cost, would be some interesting income. So I don't know how to communicate that or how to make these proposals. But I think the town should think about the kind of cross fees and how to fund some of the programs. through enforcing fees.
So that's helpful, and again, our job is to sort of communicate that as we sit down and talk with other entities that are involved with parking. Police are involved with, parking and collection of fees, enforcement, planning as they're reviewing projects, so.
Mhm.
And again, the benefit of a new team, and I'm starting to find I'm using this more and more. People ask, well, how did we get here? And I would say by evolution, not by design. And we really need to take advantage of the opportunity. We have new people coming to the table and say, all right, how should this be designed? We know where we are, but the people who got us here aren't. What's the next step? So Sven, I think just those sort of thoughts are, helpful. And, they actually validate some of the things that I know engineering's been sort of expressing some concerns. And we do coordinate with other town departments and divisions as needed. So, I think that's a, note, taken.
Yeah,
When you had the, I'm looking at the culvert and bridge repairs line,
Hmm,
when you had a culvert failure last year, right? How much was that broadly of the repair,
600,000,
and where did that money come from?
exactly. It was spent.
I mean, next year, we're gonna fund this at $25,000.
Like this year.
Yeah, so, but we have a message. We have a program, just the whole identification of the stormwater enterprise, which we'll talk a little bit more. We're putting it out there, and that's the starting point. You gotta start with the identifying the need, developing the appropriate message, having people hear it. And, cause otherwise, and we talk about this, deferred cost is not a cost savings, it's just deferring costs,
Yeah, and
increasing.
inflating.
Just the example, I use ministerial, but you kind of did connect the dot, is tenfold more because of the lack of investment. It's a pretty stark and clear example.
And also this example of the 600,000 on the culvert repair is like, by kicking the can down the road, it doesn't mean that the costs are not there.
That's right. They're just, they're
They're
hidden in other areas.
just shoveling and something and
Correct.
taking it away. from
Or we're
somewhere
waiting
else.
until something happens and then we fix it,
Exactly,
instead of preparing it before it gets.
correct. So in any event, so that's sort of the budget, and that's kind of where we are headed. I want to take time to go into, if you're okay, to move on to the next article.
Just have
Yeah,
one,
please, yeah.
one more, because
Sure.
this memo, you're touching on all the different articles that are relevant for us, or?
The ones I wanted to flag is, as I said, take a look at all of them. There's a few others that we'll talk about that include public works, but,
Come to sell.
exactly, yeah, we can talk about that. And that's where I flag those. We can talk on any of those articles that you wanna, discuss. I do think as far as, we can go right down the list, but I think if I look at my master list, I still, just find my warrant. I did flag others of interest, but right now, the next one in order of, sort of how they appear in the warrant is beyond the capital planning, Article 16, that's the creation of the Stormwater Enterprise Fund. And, with that, I'm gonna ask Saul Ybarra to come up. Justin, you're welcome to, we may be calling on you. Justin, just so you know, as far as capacity, what he brings, Justin's been doing a lot of the stormwater work, and planning reviews, working with the planning department. Saul, we hired, Saul, it's been a year?
Yeah, a year and a couple months.
Year and a couple months. Saul is sort of, we brought him on board because of his expertise in stormwater and hydrology and that sort of thing. So, knowing that we had this need, and so Saul's been, with us and helping us communicate stormwater issues already, much based on your recommendation. We need to start getting the message out. Based on that, we've met with the NRC. We met with the Climate Action
Committee.
Committee. We've met with the business partnership. And so Saul has been taking the lead as far as the messaging and explaining where we are. A lot of those things you've heard, you already were up to speed on some of our work, but right now we're getting to the process of how to make a case for a stormwater and back and forth messages and what we're hearing. It's slowly getting refined to where are we headed? We're headed to town meeting with recommendations that stormwater is gonna take, it's gonna be a two-step process. You folks sort of champion that to begin with. We've got it refined, so we have a better understanding of what are we looking at. We're looking at the creation of an enterprise fund. And that's really the goal, without all the details as far as, a specific budget or rates. We're gonna need time to educate people so they can get comfortable with, well, how much is it gonna cost and when is it gonna hit? But we're already starting to talk about this concept. And we actually, at our meeting where we're advancing a full-blown model that was used from another community. And after going through discussion, with town council, town manager, experiences from our consultant, we now have a proposal which includes, we're calling a model bylaw, but it's to be determined whether we're gonna look to actually move on that, take action at this town meeting, or simply just have it so people can understand where is this headed. So, and I gave you a sort of a draft. I apologize, I don't think it got in the packet, but it's sort of a two-page slimmed down bylaw that we can talk about. But the concept itself, is we're educating, we're reaching out, and I will say what we're hearing is not a complete rejection of, it's an acknowledgement and understanding. There is some fear and trepidation as far as people think of a utility. And, I pay my cable, I pay my water, sewer, what kind of fees and what are we talking about? So we have to sort of explain the needs and also some of the costs of what we see. But Saul, I don't know if you want to sort of give perspectives, what we're hearing, at least from feedback from the outreach we've had to date.
Yeah, I think our presentations have been well received so far. Especially in front of the CAC and the NRC, in front of the business partnership. I don't think we had really any negative feedback. I think we are getting a few emails from commercial and industrial facilities, a little concerned about, what the fee might look like for them. But it is all proportional. So, if a resident's paying $100, commercial facility is gonna pay $100 based on their impervious area as well. So it is proportional. It might look like a lot more, it might be a lot more, but it is proportional to the impervious area and the amount of runoff that they create. And it works just like any other utility. If a golf course has $9,000 in a water bill, and I don't think you should suspect that the town should have to pay golf course for their water. So it works just like that. But I think we've had pretty good feedback overall so far.
So what's the plan on the bylaw text? Is
We're
just getting printed and then
Yeah,
for
so-
vote, or is it?
before this is gonna go to the FinCom.
No, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh, FinCom Enterprise.
Yeah,
Funds,
the
yes.
FinCom Enterprise will have sort of finalized this language. Will be, we're still out sort of getting some feedback on this, but it's to be determined, and it's gonna be a judgment call whether this is actually something we want to move at town meeting to adopt this specific language, or if nothing else, allow people to understand where is it we're going. So that decision hasn't been made yet. We'd certainly be interested in the commission's sort of thoughts on that. But again, we went from you remember, a very simple, enabling legislation language to, into the two-step, simple enabling legislation, and then details at a later date to, this is a hybrid of, let's float a bylaw, so it gives, if you look at this, and you can kind of, pass that out, it gives you some definitions. It gives, responsibilities, how fees are gonna be established. And it's clearly identifying the Public Works Commission's role in this. A lot of the discussions we've had internally and sort of externally is that this is it's like a utility, which is maintained by our highway grounds already. The asset management and needs and improvements are gonna be designed and constructed through our engineering group. And hence, we're sort of here to provide what are the needs, and then the commission has sort of the experience and authority to set rates for water, sewer, solid waste. So it seems to fit into this arena, and this clearly, allows people to understand that, moving forward. There's been discussions that were kind of highlighted on credits that people are very interested in. And one thing to share, and this is sort of, as we talk about the messaging, and we see this in other communities, be clear that everybody has their own property, specifically, but then there's shared infrastructure that's still part of the total bill, the needs. A lot of that stormwater system is under roads and, within the right of way and that sort of thing. So the fee is, you're never gonna have no impact as long as you're sort of using the town's network to get to and from your property. There's value in having the stormwater system managed, maintained, replaced, improved. So there's always a cost, but then you get into the impact on private property. What if we wanted to install rain gardens or do something to offset? Those are things that we need to discuss. We're aware of it, so we're aware of these interests. We know there's issues with appeals. What's the process? How do we appeal this? Would be the entity. So this bylaw here has been somewhat crafted between the town manager, staff, council as a starting point. And based on experience from, as well as our consultant, who's sort of seen these things sort of adopted across the Commonwealth, so.
Yeah, follow up on.
Yeah.
My question is I think right now, I would love to just get conceptual, is like, are certain things, what do we conceptually want in a bylaw? For example, I think to remember that conceptually thought that the Public Works Commission would be the entity setting the fee. The budget is set by the town meeting, but how does like we do it for the others, that we have a fee hearing and we set the fee. But the way this is here structured is that actually fee is with the budget. So are we achieving what we want to achieve, or did we change our mind on this? So that's, for example, one thing.
Yeah.
The question that Tom brought up is does the fee is imposed on town property or not?
Questions, these are the things that we need to use, that's right.
Conceptually, we have to think of. Conceptually, if we look, and I don't know how the article was on the warrant on the infamous scenic road bylaw, but it appeared that the final bylaw was then in that case designed and decided, or is getting decided by committee. Whereas here we're deciding.
So let's try and just clarify. So the bylaw has to be adopted through town meeting bylaw. The regulations were what they pointed to that gave the authority to the planning board. And those are the sorts of things, Sven, that we're sort of talking about. I think the process is this first, if this is to be adopted, and this is where we have to massage, is it it talks about a budget and fee. But I think our understanding is those would be adopted at a later town meeting.
Yeah, but right now the bylaw is more or less implying that the fee, even after the initial one, is most likely always at the town meeting. And this is conceptually something
Correct.
we want to have.
Exactly.
To have fee structure and fee levels at the town meeting, or do we conceptually want to have it like other enterprise funds, that is enterprise fund is at the town, budget is at the town
Correct.
meeting, and how the fee then is curved and how we incentivize with all the other things that are in here is done at the public works.
Correct.
Commission level.
Conceptually, that is what's been discussed.
Yeah, so that should be more precise
Yeah.
in here then.
Yep. And open to, comments, questions, thoughts on that. Yeah, but in essence, it's Sven, and it's consistent with our conversations. But the bylaw has to, the enabling legislation is not a function of Public Works Commission, but it can include language that provides the authority of future rate setting, credits, regulations to the Public Works Commission. And that's sort of how it's intent. And again, Sven, this is sort of working with council. And I know they were sort of, understood this could be a kind of a, just the trial balloon or not, depending on how close can we get this before the FinCom meeting and hearing.
The way I would think about that is, I'm a big believer in options theory when it comes to decision making, is what course you take, what options will it give you next year? If we've structured the vote this year, or whatever we do this year, yeah, how will that set us up for next year?
Yeah.
Set you up to go forward to fund the thing.
Mhm.
So, that's can I make a couple other quick comments?
Please.
Two, I'm the non-engineer in the group here, and I'm viewing this as like my busy neighbors, me and my busy neighbors trying to could be confronted with this decision at town meeting. And I think this document that you created, the Concord Stormwater Enterprise Fund, is a great start.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that we need. And still, I think a lot of people aren't gonna go through this.
That's right.
And so, some quick thoughts. One, I would start with stories. I would start with, what does this stormwater mean? What does it mean if we don't manage stormwater? What does it look like? It stops, Sudbury Road, or it stops, Monument Street, it washes out this, or what are the costs of not doing that? So grounded in, because otherwise it's so abstract. Stormwater is just, I don't know what it is. So stories, the word enterprise fund to you is in your blood.
Mhm.
Enterprise fund is a very abstract concept to me. I would continually early on keep defining what enterprise.
What does that mean?
by
Right,
that.
right.
Like we have 3 enterprise funds in town.
Mhm.
They are X, Y, and Z, or whatever, but
Mhm.
help me get a handle on what you mean.
Mhm.
And the last point I'd make is other towns are having to do this, right?
Mhm.
We're not alone. It's not just Concord wants to spend more money. We're doing it. Other towns are being forced to do this because of A, B, and C.
Mhm.
So get that out too. Boy, this is a big picture problem.
Yeah.
And this is our little local way to address it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and all very good points, and yes, I mean, I think those are the things that helps us with messaging
Right,
and understanding,
right.
yeah.
yeah,
And so, and
That's right.
you always say the non-engineering, but most of our customers are not
I
engineers.
know, I know.
So it's always helpful.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
gonna
it's
go
good.
to
I
a
think
planner
it's good.
engineer type, right?
I'm done.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I think it's good that you pointed those things out, and we do have a stormwater enterprise website. So if you and your neighbors,
Yeah, but.
For one,
You still gotta get.
but it's there, so we can at least start at that point.
Yeah.
And it does discuss like other communities that have
Yeah.
this, and but we definitely need to do more outreach, but there's definitely a place where somebody can go and get educated.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. This is terrific though. I think looks like a really cool start.
Yeah, and this is again part of the ask, so our consultant was able to work with us, and you saw, and I will say, just to help clarify, because you've gotten, this is moving forward, but based on the, feedback we continue to get. We've talked about reports and detailed reports and, oh, I'm sorry, what is that message? Linda, do we know what that is?
TV will turn,
The TV.
Okay.
okay,
I can get that.
TV remote.
Oh, this one.
258 seconds.
What do I have to
No
do?
pressure.
Just hit okay.
Okay, I think-
What do I said? Okay?
It's in the
No,
Middle of
if
the-
I don't want to shut it off,
Middle
it's
of
supposed to. 250 seconds.
yeah, between the arrows,
This one?
I think so.
Yep, there we
All
go.
right. Wow, that was close. Vernon corrects it. Linda, take note, will you? I'm sorry. Oh, yes. We talked about studies and that sort of thing. We're not at a point where we're gonna have we are working with our consultant to develop a detailed, study. But at this point, we have sort of abbreviated what we do know, which is basically, this is the document that we're sharing. It provides a very broad overview. The study that we're looking for is going to inform us in the commission and town meeting as far as where are the precise rates and those sorts of things. We're just not there, but we're working, on developing that material, just to be clear, because we've talked about studies that were gonna be completed in January. Well, this is the roll-up. The frequently asked questions is helpful, and, that report will be forthcoming, but, in good time.
And those are posted on the website as well,
These
so
are-
we could,
Did you have, oh,
Yeah.
Jeff had
Yeah, oh, sorry, Jeff, yeah,
Credits is an interesting part of this bylaw.
yeah.
And you may have already thought about this, and Weston Sampson may have already dealt with this, but I think I have a larger commercial development where the developers being told they need to no net increase in stormwater runoff from the property.
Mhm.
So they're investing in some sort of infrastructure on their property to control stormwater.
Mhm.
So it's not going into the public system. And then if they get told they have to pay a certain stormwater fee because their parking lot is a certain pervious areas of a certain size, but they're controlling the runoff from that parking lot. How does that get handled? Cause I can see someone saying, you're hitting me twice here.
Yeah.
They're making me put this rain garden in or what infiltration area,
Right.
and then you're making me pay for runoff that isn't going into the
Mhm.
street.
Mhm.
yeah, and there would be, there would be a credit for that,
Okay. Yeah.
system that they have in their parking lot or any kind of stormwater control measure. But yeah, there would probably still be a fee assessed. It might be, if it's large enough, system, it might be 50% discount, on the fee. And then so then the question is, well, why should they still have to pay half? And it's because usage of roads, usage of sidewalks,
I'll admit that.
so that we can put stormwater infrastructure in front of their business so that their parking lot doesn't flood even more.
Yep.
So there's other reasons for a continued fee, beyond the stormwater control measure
Yep.
credit.
Then I think this may be more of a position we might want to take as a commission. So right now in the budget, there's stormwater management funding,
Mhm.
and there may be other things in here that would fall under the stormwater enterprise fund. If the stormwater enterprise fund is then picking up that cost, I'd hate to see us lose that as part of our annual allocation. I'd rather see us be able to move that to something else that isn't funded properly, but. I
It's
don't know
all
how
on
we
the
do that.
balancing of the needs, and I think the case would be, at least we, the town, can look at the general fund budget and apportion it as needed, but I think the stormwater goal would be to, whether it's 50,000 here or there, we know we got all sorts of needs. We're just looking to say, and be clear, investments of about 1.5 to 2 million a year is what we anticipate for stormwater.
Yeah.
And so that's what the rates that we'd be looking to sort of accommodate. Once we get that, we'll be much better off on our stormwater. And you're saying, well, could we then take that 50,000 elsewhere? That's part of the budget making process.
So
So that's
I
what-
think it would be good to,
Of course, that's
Make
why the
that
Public
point
Works
up front.
Commission, yes,
Say-
yeah.
we're being creative and coming up with something new to cover some of the DPW costs through this new enterprise fund.
Mhm.
We shouldn't be penalized, even though some people will make a different argument, because we have so many other needs that are underfunded. So we found a way to remove funding for one or two items so we can shift it to other items that are also a priority.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, that's FinCom and Select Board and all that, but at least it's on the record.
On the questions which that relates to that the town should pay for runoff. Is the town paying for the waste?
For wastewater?
No, for waste, for.
Solid waste.
Oh, solid waste?
and
Yes,
recycling.
yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So if we keep in the same logic,
Exactly. Exactly. And these are the questions that are coming up just as we do, our research out in the industry. And again, there's 20 other, is it 20 communities, I think, in
20 plus,
Massachusetts?
yeah.
Yeah, and they're growing, but these are the questions we're hearing and the things that we need to iron out. I'll tell you another one that was very interesting. What about, the church parking lot, the churches and that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta,
and then
let's,
schools.
yeah, let's, let's, in the schools, and yeah, we gotta, those are all on the table, and fair and equitable when it comes to stormwater is, I don't wanna, there's all sorts of jokes I could make on that one, but I'm not. So, But it's just basically, we're managing.
Waste cost, but for the waste, for trash pickup, we're paying a vendor. The town's paying a vendor to do that. In this case, we're paying ourselves to keep that stormwater system in good condition. We're not paying a third party to come in and manage the stormwater
If
system.
we call it a contractor, then
Well, question
But
is,
that's,
what do we do for water?
what do we do for water? Same, are they paying for water?
Yes, oh, yeah.
okay.
No, this is the
No,
discussion.
how do you-
Nothing wrong with, this is the discussion.
I think it's important that this gets to town meeting,
Mhm,
because if it doesn't, it delays it another year.
mhm.
In my,
Yeah,
because you won't hit the rates until the year after you do this.
right.
Unless you really scrambled.
Yeah, and there's not a right or wrong, right? I mean, there's different approaches, and that's what we're talking about. And, the most important thing is people need to understand what we're doing and why. That's in our court. We started that process. I think we have some good information. But, success is gonna be, kind of measured on, is the town saving money on stormwater in the long term? And that's what we're trying to help people understand.
So on the process, because if this is going to town meeting, I at least already found a few comments.
Yeah.
On this thing, is when do you need to get comments on this, and when?
When's the FinCom meeting?
The FinCom meeting will
March
be,
21st.
yeah, March 21st, yeah, thank you. So we can put this back on the March meeting to get comments.
Yeah.
And then, iron out what is the recommendation for the presentation, and then we'll bring that back to council, because they like to, make sure all the, for the most part, the Ts are crossed, Is dotted. So I think if we make that for, we'll put it back on the agenda for this particular article. And it's not baked until it's baked, so anything that you see that you might want to have a comment on, we can also talk about
Plus-
in March.
Plus, the hearings are meant to find out.
More
what
information,
things need to be
exactly,
changed or modified.
exactly.
Added or
These
subtracted.
are like more kind of typos and.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, no, and this would be good to have, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're getting closer and closer, but that's, good comments. Please, take a look at that and, sort of, we can send that out electronically just so you can even mark it up and, be prepared for the next meeting, okay?
Well, just going by something that Dave
Yeah.
said too is, I think education is your currency here. I
Yeah.
think if this comes to town meeting and people don't know what you're talking about and they hear fee, they're just gonna vote against it.
Mhm.
So that's important to just make sure people know how important this is. Also, Mass DEP is recommending this, I think, to municipalities as a very viable and maybe the only way to pay for stormwater
Mhm.
issues. So I would just keep that in mind. And also what Dave was saying about enterprise versus general fund, why this is a more fair and equitable way of spreading this cost around the entire community instead of just for people who are paying taxes and this kind of thing.
Okay, good. So that's the storm. I'm gonna now go through, that was the meatiest of the conversation we have. The others, I'm gonna go in order of, the next one, Article 17 is Nagog Pond improvements and PFAS mitigation. Again, as a reminder, that's the $50 million, borrowing request, and that is driven primarily to comply with Safe Drinking Water Act, and the Nagog treatment needs. That's just been outstanding for decades now. But most of those costs are with Nagog to get that realized, the completion of some infrastructure along 2A as well as a treatment facility. And it's going to take multiple years to realize. And then some of those costs are for PFAS treatment at our groundwater supplies. And at this point, we are looking at 2 or 3 of our groundwater sources to add treatment to. And again, this is, it's a significant amount, what we've rolled it up to. And Andrea, to your point of people care, well, what's it gonna cost ultimately? I don't see anything other than my bill. And we've talked about this, it's going to increase costs over 10 years, probably double the actual cost for water for our users. And double means somewhere, if you're at, $600 a year, it's $1,200. If you're at $800 a year, it'll be $1,600. But that's what we're talking about as far as overall cost for drinking water.
Is this 50 million or 5 million
50 million
for construction?
for Nagog, Route 2A, and treatment. And just for what it's worth, I did include in the packet, take some time, if you haven't had a chance, to read the article that I put in that deals with the
With PFAS, yeah.
PFAS. I thought it was, as someone who's been tracking and getting involved with this on many levels and layers, I thought this was a fairly good overview of my understanding of what's happening. And this is just not a drinking water issue. This is across many industries. There's a lot of politics involved. There's a lot of science involved. And, when this comment about the regulatory landscape has evolved without any consistency. So now drinking water standards in the US and elsewhere vary widely according to interpretations of different agencies and how they view the same data and what concentrations they think are appropriately protective. This is the challenge. It's a cost benefit. We're talking about public health. We're talking about regulatory requirements, and the impacts are significant. So I do highly recommend you read this, and this might help as people are asking you. You can use this as a reference, and we'll, again, use our website. Our job is we'll populate it. I'm gonna work with Linda to make sure it's, a must-see. You gotta go to Concord Public Works website today. What does it look like? Because they're doing something fun on the front. But we're doing the best we can to at least provide the information. So that's, I don't know if there's any, questions on this.
Just one
Please,
question.
yeah.
So the article says borrow 50 million. Your memo said a combination of cash, capital, and debt. Is that because we might have some?
We do have
Money in the
some,
bank.
we actually have, there's some reserve, but it's
Okay.
not significant. And when we used to talk about, it's a great question, Jeff. We have $10 million in reserve.
Yep.
And geez, you need that when you're operating. Well, no, it's the ability to do a 10-year pro forma to say, well, these are the investments we're gonna be making over the next 10 years. So I think the language, you're correct. The article is accurate. The memo is a little sloppy with the fact that we do have additional funds, but the 50 million is what we're looking to borrow.
So we would borrow the 50
50
million.
million, correct.
Over what time? Over what time?
So once you get authorization, then when we then work with the finance director, as far as they then bundle based on your schedule, your project
Yeah,
schedule.
exactly. So then,
So I'm expecting over the next 3 to 5 years.
I think that's important for communication.
Okay, yeah,
Because you leave the impression that then you turn around after a town meeting and raise 50 million and then
that's right.
scared.
Yeah.
You say it's kind of a 5-year,
Yeah, burn rate, correct.
yeah,
That's right.
just, that's very important.
Over the next 5 years,
Yeah.
yeah, that's helpful.
So I didn't hear you say what happens if we don't do this.
Yeah, that's what's next.
You have people literally being provided water that they cannot drink. And that's sort of the,
Because they
of
can't. How do we
a
know?
standard. A standard says, you know, you're not advised to drink this water. We'd have to tell people, you know.
Is that because of PFAS?
PFAS, yeah.
And this is because of EPA, this is again.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the federal standard. This PFAS challenge is just, again, I would say it's here by evolution, not by design. It's just been creeping in and people reacting and potentially overreacting. And in some cases, underreacting, but it's systemic and it's not just drinking water. You know, it's just this contaminant that's in the environment. And, you know, with many other contaminants that are in the environment, we just focused on this one. And, you know, public health is, you know, the driver on this one. Now, to be clear, messaging, it's probably better now than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. I think the water I consumed is probably, you know, Concord, we do not have what I consider hotspots for PFAS. We have traces of it. But even a trace is considered problematic. And that's why this is a universal problem. But even standards in this country are different than standards in other countries. So you tell people in England, it's fine, and in this country, it isn't. Well, it's the same contaminant. This is the regulatory dilemma. So that's the other big, you know, I'd say that we just identified the larger sort of articles of interest for Public Works, but if I go down to the 18, select board to accept easements, you know, that's identified for Public Works, and I do want to call your attention. Jim, do you have?
The reason for this, I think, is that it causes a lot less grief having to get the easements through town meeting all the time.
Correct,
And
correct,
so it was probably a combination of Public Works and CMLP,
correct.
who are the places that usually get these easements. If this article will allow the select board to then hear them, understand them, and accept them.
Correct. It's an administrative process that council identified. I think at some point we were going back and forth on an easement. I think it was even, you know, we had a couple of them in Public Works. One was Sunnyside, where there's a water main that required an easement be, authorized to the town. I've been here long enough where it's interesting. This is the first time this has come up for, you know, town meeting. But I do think it's a housekeeping issue on, you know, how to allow for Public Works, light plant to do time-sensitive projects. It cannot just wait for decision, for town meeting, so
So I have one question on 17 before we leave it.
please.
It's on a different hearing. It's on the FinCom for the town budget. And it's an enterprise fund. So I wonder if you should talk to someone else and have it be on the enterprise.
I think they put it there because, and I can talk, but can find out, because it's part of the borrowing. And the borrowing process is administered, I don't know, Jim, but that might be the, because they have to borrow for other funds,
But
but
it's an enterprise.
correct, yeah. I will make note of that.
Okay.
Again, as I'm sort of, we're mapping out how the sausage is made, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Yep, got it.
This is-
Go ahead.
Also, the city, also has a school budget in there. In the same.
Sure, it's town budget, schools, public schools and
And
regional
that's
schools.
just,
But it's not part of the town budget.
yeah, it would be good to be in the
It's-
enterprise section.
It's borrowing, but it's not part of the budget.
It would be good if it would be in the
Mhm,
enterprise.
yeah. That's helpful, yeah, good. If we then go to a couple citizen petitions,
Yeah.
and these deal with the cell towers, and this is, Article 38. And I'll just, Dave, you don't have to drill too deep into this, I'll explain. There is issue with cell coverage townwide. And
You don't
it's
know
been-
that.
Say- Dave, not everybody was hanging up on you, remember that.
Always an easy excuse.
It took me a while. Sorry, I'm in conflict. So anyway, there is angst and interest as far as improved cell coverage, angst as far as to where the tower is gonna be located. And, there is a citizen petition to have the town sort of evaluate, do a feasibility study and look at an RFP for siting of a cell tower on two different locations that Public Works is, I'd say primarily, responsible for maintaining. One is this campus and one is at the landfill. Now, it's interesting that there has been no discussion or interaction with Public Works as far as, does this make sense? Is this a good idea? There's a history, and both sites have been evaluated in the past. But it's just, there isn't a conversation, and at this point, I know the select board is being urged to do this. They have their own awareness of opportunities for cell towers, and so rather than get into the weeds, there really isn't anything to comment on, other than if and when it gets to a point where people are sort of inquiring as to the feasibility or viability of this, we will weigh in. But there is no, at this point, the landfill is not ever been considered a feasible alternative for a lot of reasons, but including there's easements, conservation restrictions on that property. There's use plans already established. There are abutters, that would have significant, sort of issues that are actively engaged with uses around Walden Pond and that sort of thing. And in this campus, we're still in the process of realizing what is the future of this campus, let alone commit to an object or item that we then have to work around. There was work at one point about, using the stack, this is public information in this facility to possibly, conceal it, then there was a balloon test or site test to see if it extended, what sort of visibility would there be, would it affect the national park? There's all sorts of angles to this, but this is a citizen petition that's just put out there, and citizens have the right and ability to do this, but there isn't a lot to bring to the table because there's been no conversation with Public Works and Select Board at this point.
Right, but before town meeting, I think this commission should take a position.
Oh, we'll probably,
On those articles.
Yeah, and we'll even see if they're even still viable at that
Sure.
point.
No.
Correct.
At the select board meeting this Monday, one of the select board members mentioned that the solar task force indicated that there have been some problems at the landfill with siting of the solar, and therefore this may not be moving forward,
Yeah,
but that's all I heard.
yeah.
Is there, does, the church that some of us attend to, is that in play? I mean,
Yeah, there are.
Unitarian congregation.
I'm not really sort of at liberty, there's information I'm aware of, but I'm not
Okay.
at liberty to be sort of the spoke, we can talk to the select board, I know
I'll,
they've been plugged in. Yeah.
I'm on the church council. so-
Okay, great, yeah,
Yeah, they're doing,
And,
question.
there are definitely conversations going on with Verizon.
that's right.
About making that, and it already is a cell tower,
Mhm.
because it was Sprint's had a contract there for years.
Mhm.
And they gave it up for whatever reason, and there's some conversations with Verizon, which would suddenly turn Concord into a non-third world country.
It's
just-
possible.
It's just unbelievable,
Yeah.
it just, I just can't wrap my mind around
Yes.
this. But,
We're
yes.
all equally.
So there may be other solutions.
Yes, correct, and I'm aware of that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, it's a before town meeting, you should have a whatever position. What I'm curious is, does the sponsoring citizen have a certain knowledge about why these two locations qualify? If I go back, I worked like 25 years ago for a mobile operator, And these network designs were highly complex.
Mhm.
And just by saying, oh, you can put something there, doesn't necessarily make sense.
Mhm.
That this is from the network coverage.
Correct.
Yeah.
Everything,
Mhm.
But they want it.
that makes sense. So that's one of the things, like, is that do they,
That's the trouble with
Yeah.
citizen petitions.
yeah, it's,
We
we
don't know
can't
until
say,
we-
even if you as a town decide to put it right there and put like 10 of these right in front of us. Doesn't need to fulfill the purpose, so do we know that there's really some kind of additional information why these two locations are specifically good for cell phone coverage?
No,
But luckily, they're in the first hearing.
The first hearing, yeah, I might be not here that day, so that's why.
yeah, but Sven, there isn't, other than it's,
They will be taken.
as Jim said, it could be, you know, it's, the citizen has the right to
Yeah,
sort of develop this concept, but there hasn't been discussion and,
Yep.
and there's town staff who've been involved with looking at siting of these cell towers, and they're a little bit more engaged.
yeah,
Yeah,
my,
with
my
some
fear
specific-
is, just again, is knowing the discussions around position of cell towers, is assuming this would be approved. And Verizon says, nice, but it doesn't help.
Yeah.
We still need to get on top of CCHS.
Mhm.
That, then the argument is, well, you have all the health concerns around putting it on top of CCHS, but you have this position here, and you can take that location. And then we are just in a standstill and not getting coverage because they're using it as an excuse not to implement the cell towers on the Edit Church at CCHS or somewhere else.
Right.
That's my fear.
Yeah, that's right.
Recognize that citizen petitions have to urge, you know, in most cases, they're urging the select board to ask, you know, request for an RFP. So
The select board will then take that and say, okay,
we'll take that into our advice.
Yeah.
Based on knowledge that the town has, they may say it's a good idea or not a good idea. We'll see at town meeting and at the hearings.
so those were, of note, then I won't belabor the other.
Expenditures.
The expenditures, those are the routine articles, and again, those are the issues that we talk about with rates and budgets and things that you folks vet, you know, very carefully. But those just, in essence, authorize the town manager to expend funds that are collected through revenues, fees, that sort of thing. Part of these.
Content calendar, are these content calendar?
Hopefully, yes.
Generally, yes. Sometimes when the moderator thinks there's something of interest or wants an opportunity to educate, but I think there's enough other things going on where, you know, they'll probably say if there's nothing, you know, the $50 million borrowing will be a significant, you know, discussion. So,
The problem with this, they're at
yeah,
the last articles.
Really?
So
Yeah.
that moderator is
It's
not
like
gonna,
the
he's not
leaf
likely
blower.
to take them off of the consent calendar.
One question
Yeah.
on Article 21. There's toilets on the sports field. Is this something we as Public Works would be in the end somehow responsible or semi-responsible for?
It's a good question. We are part of the, by design.
Facilities.
We've had a good meeting just recently. We have a new, I have to say, we have a new facility manager coming on board as of Tuesday. So this is very important. We have a new recreation director. We have,
Push me.
we are working with Park and Trees on sort of roles, responsibilities of some of these community assets, and including, you know, the Doug White Field, those sorts of things. So we're in the process of trying to figure out where are these, you know, duties, responsibilities, who's responsible for what. It wouldn't be appropriate for the school to assume Public Works is going to, or facilities is going to take care of something, but would be part of a conversation, certainly. But we are responsible, Aaron, right? We've got the bathroom up by Doug White Field is something that we maintain. So this is something we'd have to kind of look at. And Aaron, I don't know if you've heard anything on this amenities building at this point. So Span, the key is we gotta stay plugged in. But we are having these conversations right now that we're looking at efficiencies across departments, but also not absorbing responsibilities we don't have resources for. But yes, okay. So, there you go. This is helpful.
You're just ruining all my evenings now.
I think we're good with the articles. There's no action, but I think we will be coming back and.
This has been good.
Okay, yeah, this is helpful for us. Thank you. Yeah,
Onto the director's report.
okay, so we'll, let's see, I think we're gonna start with Jeff Morosky, who is here, present and accounted for. Let me see, and hopefully all this will work. Let me get to my Zoom, and so it is Valentine's Day. Our goal is to get you out of here before 6, so I'm gonna try and keep it to 5 minutes per program, okay? Let's see if this doesn't work. So Jeff, don't take it personally, but I'm watching that clock on the wall. So, it's all yours. We good?
Get to a water and sewer slide.
Let me get here. Okay,
Okay, first slide, this is featuring hydrant work that we do. In the Turning Mill neighborhood, there was a hydrant that had a operating shaft that got snapped. We have operations crew members doing a shop repair of the operating shaft. And then putting the hydrant back into service with a repair. To the right of the slide, over in the valley by number 31, the valley, we had a hydrant that we were replacing. This is activities that we do in the director's report. We had we do leak detection survey, as the commission knows. And there was one confirmed leak, and it was a hydrant leak in the Butternut Circle neighborhood, and it happened to be the second eye hydrant we put in. So there's specialty parts that we needed to wait for, and we've got a scheduled date for that to be repaired on February 22nd. And then we'll be undertaking a hydrant replacement on Old Marlboro as well. Second slide. On an annual basis, we do education outreach, and usually it's the 5th grade that we target, and there's a reason for that. With the 5th grade curricula, science and STEM related, they focus on water cycle and water resource subject matter. So Caitlin Messer, who is our environmental regulatory coordinator, she was taking more of a lead role in this process, and I believe Saul Ibarra also participated in this process, speaking to stormwater issues. 5th grade, about 230 students we reach out to. Next slide.
future ratepayers.
This, and also informing the young shapes the future as well. This is featuring and showing a spotlight on a problem, a behavioral problem. This is unflushables, things that get thrown down toilets that shouldn't get thrown down toilets. Usually this manifests as a problem in pump stations, more so than the collection system, the gravity system. It can, but it often shows up at pumps, and you can see that it's clogged within the suction of the pump. We had to pull the pump, remove the object. This is the educational outreach trifold brochure that we developed. I'm gonna work with either engineering or with our GIS team to get a mailing list so we can send out targeted information to help change this behavior. In our last slide for water and sewer, we did have a water main a water main leak on Bedford Street. It was detected early in the morning. We went out and responded 7 AM. We had the leak area shut down by 8:15. We had the repair completed by 9:10, and then we were out of the street by 9:40. So a lot of that has to do with crew persons that know what they're doing. They're prepared to respond to these types of situations. It also has to do with a little bit of situational luck on site. But it was definitely one of the quicker repairs that we made, and it was a wraparound repair on the cast iron main. It was a crack from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock. So it was also a defect type that lent itself well to a quick repair, so that was also fortunate.
Yeah, that was remarkable. Just, we have a new employee from another system. This was one of his first emergency responses. He said he couldn't believe how quickly the crew responded. Everybody took actions. It was almost quiet. Everybody knows what they're doing. And he said if it was his system, they'd still be it was overtime and, it was crazy. So it really kudos to the crowd. Thank you, Jeff, for,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead, Jim.
The EPA PFAS compounds method,
Yes.
it sounds like it's not just water, regular water, it's wastewater, surface water, groundwater, soil, sediment, landfill, leachate, and fish tissue. But
Yes.
you've gotta be,
This is part of the evolution of PFAS and knowing even how to measure and monitor in all of these media. That's what
so
yeah.
when does this start to become effective?
It's in our permit for I'm sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
Let me answer. We don't have MCLs yet, new MCLs on the water side yet. We're still waiting on those. We had old ones for Massachusetts that regulated,
Maximum contaminant levels.
Okay,
sorry,
Yeah.
slipping into jargon there. We're not yet regulated for the new, few parts per trillion on the water side. In our most recent NIPD's permit, which is the permit that regulates how we operate the wastewater treatment plant as well as the collection system, they built into our last permit, monitoring requirements. So what EPA is doing is they're data gathering on PFAS on the wastewater side. So we're looking at the PFAS that comes into the influent of the plant, the treated effluent that comes out of the plant, as well as our biosolids, the sludge. So we're analyzing all three of those. And they'll roll that into future rulemaking and regulation making. So this was approved as a analytical technique for wastewater medias and landfill leachate type applications. So that was just informational.
okay, good. Before you go, good. Wastewater. For December, we were over our average flow was over the maximum.
Mhm.
Do we have a reason?
It was very wet, yes. And we're regulated on a 12-month rolling average, so the
Okay.
rolling average is
Right,
lower.
rolling, I know that, okay.
But obviously that creates a spike to the average or raises the average.
Okay, so on your facilities plan, you've got a project in the order of $9 million. What is this, the sewer fund balance? Is it part of it? How much of that 9 million do we have already?
So with the sewer fund, there is a combination, I think it's about 4.5 million in the sewer improvement fund. And I'm not sure how much is in the sewer. So we have, the sewer fund is dedicated for improvements and capacity
Right,
related.
yeah, that's different.
And I can't recall, Jim, but I don't have the budget in front of me. We're finalizing that, but it's something which we anticipate we will likely need to go borrow. But we're not at that
We're not,
point of
okay.
identifying the need.
And then it said we have unanticipated staffing issues. Is that Weston and Sampson or is it Concord employees?
Just can you read that?
Wastewater,
On the wastewater side? Oh, I
Yeah.
think there was,
the facility plan. Plan final release of the plan. So it must be
I
Weston.
think the
Sampson.
final, I think that is taking the high road and describing the superintendent being out for a period
well,
of
as far as
time.
the schedule. Yeah, we've
So
delayed.
we had delay in getting our final comments into the consultant, so for them to wrap up.
Thank you.
Here you go.
I'll stop making,
No, that's-
stop asking sewer questions.
That's okay, yeah. All right,
I won't get up yet.
we'll go to highway
Okay.
grounds. Good. Aaron will be,
Now we've only got 3 minutes.
I know, I'm sorry, we're.
That was me,
It's
it was
hard,
me.
yeah, it's all right, but Aaron will be quick. He's been up here. He knows how to go through this. Go ahead.
Aaron McCloskey, Highway and Ground Superintendent. So we had, new employees join the team, last month. Patrick Cody's a park and tree specialist, joined us from another municipality, very experienced, and Patrick Boyce is an employee with a lot of construction type of experience, both in the Highway and Grounds Division, and glad to have him, so. A couple things we've been working on is a catch basin repair, so part of the stormwater infrastructure. You can see us excavating out the road in the middle photo of the backhoe employee with some materials. And then on the left-hand side, just before kind of final paving and backfill, it's the rebuilt structure. So not every structure that we have issues with is gonna completely removed and reconstructed. We will rebuild them in place, depending on the conditions. So, and on the right-hand side, sorry, one second. That's Ministerial Drive, where we have the roadway failure that was referenced earlier in the meeting. Justin was talking about, we have a much larger project that's gonna be going on. We had to plate the road to make it safe for vehicles still pass by in the area that's still open. So we have large steel plates that we'll put on top of the asphalt to kind of help stabilize it and ensure that it's still safe for travel. Sleepy Hollow, photos, some tree work that was done over the winter time. We've had some, pretty significant storms that have hit the area. Hurricane force winds in the fall, into December and in January. We spent a lot of time at Highway and Grounds the last few months doing, debris management, tree removal, tree maintenance. Couple examples of, you can see some damaged damaged area of this tree up here. We had to continue to prune it and remove some trees. So a lot of times, not only in Sleepy Hollow, but in the public right away, we spent a lot of time, doing some tree removal. On this photo, I will highlight, town meeting in 2021 funded, the replacement of this bucket truck. The truck was ordered in 2021 and has been on order since then. With the delays in manufacturing, we were recently notified that truck has not even been produced. In fact, the order has been recently canceled, and we're having to reorder the truck. Likely there's gonna be a cost increase to that, which is unbudgeted, and we're gonna have to determine where that funding's gonna come from. So those are some of the struggles that we're dealing with real time. Obviously, this truck is out on the road almost every single day. And it's a emergency response vehicle when it comes to debris management and storm response. So just highlighting, there are still delays in some of the vehicles we're ordering, waiting years and years, literally.
Aaron, how can they cancel the order?
Manufacturers will just,
It doesn't seem right.
agreed,
Because they can.
agreed.
It's unfortunate, but
And that's one of two trucks. So we have 4 heavy-duty trucks that are currently on order, and we were notified last week that 2 of them are being canceled. I just ordered one that was approved at town meeting H34 in the springtime. We ordered this October and just notified they canceled production on the vehicle. Due to delays, I'm told frames and engine requirements, freight delays and frame parts, and the new restrictions on the diesel motors that are coming out and being installed in these, and the surcharges, et cetera. Number of reasons, yeah. So we're working through that. That's real-time information, but I figured have this opportunity to share that info. Storm management, again, winter operations, crew out, chipping some trees in the right of way. This is the salt shed to the rear of the property, loading the salt that's been delivered, on the right-hand photo. So we get our salt from the Chelsea, shipyard, gets trucked out here, and piled up, and we move it inside the shed, and this is the truck's preparing to roll up after winter storm last month.
Quick question, what are the budget implications of last night's killer storm? When you gear up, I'll bet you were all geared up for that.
Geared
right?
up, ready to roll. We responded, so you might not
Yeah,
know, so we did a de-icing event.
Yeah.
We de-iced a few times yesterday throughout the day. We mobilized, we had mobilized some contractors, the storm forecast on Monday was significant. Obviously,
Oh,
it was reduced quite a bit pretty quickly, but at that point, wheels were in motion. I think I've been asked the question at this meeting before. How was the winter contractors, plow contractors? And I mentioned before, we have a good working relationship with all of them. So, we communicate with them early and often. We say, here's our planned start time. For our operations, we will call you when we know we're calling you in. We'd set a start time. We kind of committed to that start time, but we released them early enough that, we didn't have to really use them. The contractors, our staff stayed on throughout the day. With temperatures last night forecasted to drop below freezing. We did have to treat the roads again last night because they're still wet in the afternoon. So last lap, and folks were out of here by 5 o'clock yesterday.
But it's fair to say, as far as cost, probably
Yeah.
talking a $10,000, what would be the cost for that response?
Probably $30,000 to $40,000.
I mean, that you had to pay because.
I'll know.
the storm didn't happen, or that you did it cost us?
So it costs money, the time of the storm, folks mobilized early before the regular start time. We treated with salt, there's fuel costs, there's staffing time during the working day, and then a few hours, normal stop time is 3 p.m., folks left by 5. We keep a detailed storm report, so within a day or two after every storm, I have like, kind of labor hours, labor costs, all the materials, fuel, salt, everything, contractor costs. If we bring in a third party, for, tree maintenance, we have those costs, within a couple days after the storm, but.
So it would have been a third of what it would have been if it was a real, if it hit?
Yeah, we were here and we would have been plowing snow. It
Yeah.
would have taken much longer. We wouldn't have been done at 5 o'clock. If the snow would have stopped, at 5, we still would have been plowing for another 4 to 5 hours, clearing and doing all the follow-up maintenance. So we would have.
And days after, there's still
Yeah,
efforts. to
snow
keep the
removal,
crosswalks
foot
open.
of snow, yeah.
Yeah.
But is there a cost to ask their contractors to mobilize and then you may say, oh, we don't need you as much?
Yeah, we're very careful on when we try to mobilize them and when we don't mobilize them. So we have a contract, there's a standard contract for all of the winter maintenance operations. When we mobilize and they punch in, they're getting paid, they get a minimum, there's a minimum hour, a few hours that they get paid. So that, cause there's a cost of them showing up here, they're bringing their vehicles to
Yeah.
town, there's real costs that they incur. But we can release them, at any time.
Okay.
So, typically, we'll mobilize contractors when we have a high confidence that we're gonna be using them. And they're the
Okay.
first ones that are released. As soon as we're done plowing snow and there's no need for them to be here. They're not involved in de-icing or anything like that, which are usually extended hour events, so.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, Justin, you wanna come on up and, bring us home quickly?
Don't worry, I'll make this quick.
All right.
There's not a lot of exciting stuff going on in engineering right
Oh,
now.
there always is. Yeah.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Yes.
Here you'll see this is the connection from, for the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail through the MBTA parking lot. Obviously, engineering right now, most of our jobs are, preparing to bid work and stuff like that right now. So here's one of the conceptual plans for this, and this is gonna connect through to the bridge, right over there. You can go to the next slide. And as Aaron mentioned, here's one of the holes that they were covering with the plate on Ministerial Drive. This project's is probably the most exciting one going on right now with engineering. So our plans are we requested bids for an emergency work from 2 of the contractors we have for our roads program. So we will be choosing the least cost contractor and then getting them out there to replace the drainage structure that's failed and then also repair all these sinkholes. There's actually 4 of them you can only see one right now, but there's 4 of them around. So we'll be doing that. We're also hiring a geotechnical engineer because when we especially in this hole, we observed that there was a lot of like silty material underneath the roadbed, so we wanna make sure that we do it correctly, and get, the extent of the problem. So we'll, it may require a little more excavating than we're anticipating, but we'll kind of find out as we go with this one. So.
All right, well, you're here. We'll still, transition into a couple things, just high level. You're aware of the MCI, opportunities. To be clear, it's very early in the process. It involves state and regional interests. Where, the coordination of, Concord's needs and interests of the town manager's office. But what's really important for at least this group is there is up in this area here, there is a wastewater treatment facility, which is potentially an opportunity for Public Works to partner with the state and or just, take ownership. That's been floated and is potentially very real. That campus is 50 acres, inside the wall. There's all sorts of discussion as far as what could that become? One of the areas of interest could be a potential Public Works, facility that we could, really be in a good location town-wide. Stay tuned. This is gonna be a long process. We have different stakeholders and, local and regional we'll keep you posted based on the facts and information, but, you know, we're at the table. And then also important in this image, because I just think it's a great image as far as what's behind the wall. You know, yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool, but also equally important is the Rotary.
Yeah.
And so there's also, we pushed out some information on MassDOT is being sort of called to reimagine connectivity issues along the Route 2 corridor. You know, just maybe you can provide, at least, we got a briefing kind of before the public meetings. just
Yeah, we
at
got
high
a brief,
level.
yeah, we got a briefing, the majority of the work is, I would say kind of more low hanging fruit type of stuff, so they're planning on, making expansions to it, like adding a third lane where it's easy to do so, where there's like no bridges, no wetlands, that type of thing. To basically, you know, provide a larger volume of traffic, you know, through the Route 2 corridor. There wasn't a lot going on with the Rotary yet. I know they have, you know, we had discussed that they had more in-depth plans for this, but they didn't really, you know, float that very much. So most of the work is gonna be pretty like, not minor, but definitely less disruptive is probably the best way to say it, yes. So, you know, we'll keep you informed on that as we go through the process.
And Rep. Cataldo has been very active and vocal on the Rotary issues. And, you know, I think the combination of what's going on with MTI Concord and the Rotary, I'm sure there's an opportunity to reimagine that kind of more holistically. So we'll stay tuned, but in any event, that's the director's report.
All right, anybody have anything else to say, commissioners?
I watched the thing last night. It's 40 minutes, and then there's questions and answers afterwards. It's very interesting. Half of it is from the Route 2 Rotary out,
Okay.
and I've gone out. Our dog sitter is out, way out there, and I know where those problems are, and they are definitely problems. Through Concord, as was mentioned, there's like 3 spots where they're thinking of having 3 lanes. Tracy's Corner is one of them. And they're thinking of the Baker Avenue extension or Baker Avenue traffic light reconfiguration. So all of those things will take forever. So, you know, you won't be commissioners.
right.
When any of those start, but I think it's a valuable thing to look at if you've got time for next Tuesday.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right, is there any members of the public on? No, okay,
No?
all right,
I move we adjourn.
Second.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.